Thank you so much, viewers and members of the Kajiado CBO. You're most welcome to this session once more. This is a session we always have on Wednesdays, and we have topical issues that we discuss. And today we are privileged to have a very unique topic that you're going to be listening to from the expert that is going to speak to us. Before we start this session, I would want us to pray, and then we can now proceed. May we believe and pray. Father, in Jesus' name, we come before your throne this evening with thanksgiving. Lord, we thank you because of allowing us once again to meet under this platform, oh Lord. How do we pray that the deliberations that we're going to have here, oh Lord, will be for the glory and honor of your holy name, for that's what we are created to do, to glorify you, Lord. We pray that Jehovah God, whatever we are going to interact here is going to help us grow to greater heights, Lord. We welcome your presence to be with us from the beginning, and at the end will not forget to give you praise, glory, and honor. In Jesus' mighty name, I do pray and even believe. Amen. At this moment, I would like to welcome the chairman for Kajiado CBO to take us through, tell us more about the CBO. Then we will proceed with the program of the day. Welcome, Chairman.
Welcome to our guest, Dr. Ekrah. I believe by now most of our audience have known about the Kajiado We Want CBO and what we are all about. However, if you are new on this forum, I would want to make a very brief introduction on the Kajiado We Want CBO and its objectives, as well as a bit of its plans and achievement in just 5 minutes or so. Number one, the Kajiado We Want CBO is a very new entity, registered recently in November, but it existed 2 months prior, that is from the month of September, or say late August. I want to say the reason for forming this entity was in order to collaborate with other organizations, government and non-governmental, within Kajiado in order to make Kajiado great. So our mandate and objectives is to work with everybody like-minded on development matters, community matters that affect our people in the vast Kajiado. Membership is drawn from people who are residents of Kajiado, as well as anybody who is interested in Kajiado County matters. And membership is drawn from the 5 sub-counties of Kajiado, from north to west to central to east and to south. However, you will find that membership of this entity or this CBO is mainly within the Kajiado North, a bit of west and a bit of east, simply because majority of us come from Kajiado North, where this organization was formed and registered. What do we focus on? We focus on matters to do with, number one, infrastructure, number 2, water and sanitation, number 3, environment, number 4, education, number 5, health and wellness, number 6, job creation, as well as trade and industry. Number 7, advocacy for the vulnerable groups like women, children, youth, as well as people living with a disability, as well as the elderly. And finally, matters to do with security and community policing. And therefore tonight, the topic that we will be taken through by Dr. Ekrah is very timely in terms of knowing how to deal with conflict. You look at Kajiado and you realize it has urban areas, it has rural areas, and it has so many things going on. It's one of the biggest counties we have in Kenya, if you consider landmass. How do we achieve our objective? Our objectives are achieved through, number one, creating awareness, like we do. Every Wednesday, we bring people to talk on an issue like today, and we are a learning CBO. So every day we get something new, we learn something new, we get feedback, we ask questions. And number two, we do through collaboration, that is through lobbying government, both national and county. We do this through public participation by mobilizing people to go and say what they are all about and what they want to achieve, as well as even doing petitions if need be, and picketing at the end of the day. However, we believe in dialogue, and dialogue is what rules our activities first. And lastly, it is through partnership. We have lined up partners within the NGO world or corporate, even individuals who are able to take up a matter that probably government is not reaching, or an area of action like climate change, forestation, where each and every Kenyan is supposed to participate. And therefore, we partner with like-minded organizations and also government entities in order to see that we improve our environment through afforestation, waste management, as well as cleaning our rivers and any other thing of benefit to the community. The emphasis there is community and not individual. We are not a political organization. We are not a religious organization. We are not a trading organization. We are just a community-based organization. We run our affairs through committees. All those entities I've talked about, or areas of focus, we deal with them through committees. For instance, there is a committee, and this is where I want to make two announcements. There's a committee that is dealing with environment. In this committee, we have adopted Ololua Forest, and on 25th, we'll have a hike and picnic at Ololua. And at the end of the day, we'll identify a place where we can do afforestation for the next 5 years with the community around that area. Number two, we also have worked with donors. They have donated books, and the CBO is just processing approvals because we are a legal entity and we believe in the rule of law to get approvals so that we can distribute those books to schools. So those are two key projects that we'll be doing shortly. There are many others lined up within the health and other areas. Thank you very much, and back to you, moderator, Dr. Alice Kemunto.
Thank you so much, Chair, for those remarks that you've made, and indeed for the new members that have joined us today. That's all about the CBO, and we need everyone to join the CBO so that we can even be a bigger team, and together we can. So we want to go straight to today's topic, and our guest today is a lady with very rich knowledge in our areas. But before I even introduce her, I want to wish her happy International Women's Day, Dr. Ekrah. And all ladies, women that are listening to us this evening, happy International Women's Day. We love you and we appreciate you. Our guest today is Dr. Ekrah Ndungu, who is the Vice Chair of International Peace Awards Committee. Dr. Ekrah Ndungu is the CEO of the German Institute of Professional Studies, a private technical and vocational training institute based in Nairobi, and she's the founder of Pleasure Sports Limited, an education consultancy, career coaching, and mentorship services firm. Dr. Ekrah wears many hats. She is a certified emotional intelligence coach with Transformational Leadership Academy in the USA. She's also an essential business skills facilitator with ABMA education at the UK. Dr. Ekrah is quite vast in she's well versed in an area of expertise, and the education background is that she holds a bachelor's degree in entrepreneurship from Kenya Methodist University and a diploma in business management from the same university. She is a fluent speaker, and one day when I met her, she tried to teach us German. She is a fluent speaker in German language besides English, Kiswahili, and also Kikuyu. And it's quite good for one to come out clear and say, yeah, these are the languages I know. Career-wise, Dr. Ekrah Ndungu currently serves as the Secretary General of Kenya National Association of Private Colleges, which is the umbrella organization for private technical and vocational colleges in Kenya. She was recently appointed as the advisor to Cradle on strategic partnerships. She also serves as a member of the TVET Sector Advisory Board. And actually, we all know what TVETs are doing now in Kenya. They are very key when it comes to the technical and the technical skills in our society. Yeah, she's also a member of the Education Sector Board at the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, that is the KEPSA, and was appointed recently to the Technical Committee for the establishment of Open Distance and E-Learning, ODEL, for TVET Institute in Kenya. Dr. Ekrah Ndungu is going to take us through this evening on a topic, a very interesting topic that has come at the right time, and the topic is community peace building. And more importantly, she's going to touch on or concentrate on or focus on conflict resolution. So with those few remarks, because if I start introducing Dr. Ekrah Ndungu, I cannot, you need to give me a whole day to introduce her. So for those few remarks, would want to welcome Dr. Ekrah Ndungu to speak to us. Feel free to ask questions at the end of the presentation, but at the same time also you can type your questions. If you are not able to go to speak, you can type through the social media platforms and we will fetch the questions from there. So for those few remarks, allow me to welcome Dr. Ekrah Ndungu to speak to us. Welcome, Madam Daktari.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kemunto, for the kind introduction, and thank you for having me this evening. I am so honored, and that was a very generous introduction. I know if we start saying what I do, because I also chair the Christian CEOs Forum for Kenya, and I'm one of the founder directors for the same, and several other hats that I wear as the chair for the World Diplomatic Forum for East Africa. But this evening I'm here as capacity for the Vice Chair of International Peace Awards Committee. So these, every year, annually, International College of Peace Studies recognizes people who are doing peace initiatives in the country. And I was recognized in the year 2019 with an ambassadorial code of honor as one person who would preach peace and try to spread and cascade that to at least 1 million people by the year 2024. So I hope, Dr. Kemunto, this evening you have a huge number so that I can be able to achieve my goal of preaching peace to a huge number of people. So I hope we have enough viewership to close my gap easily to get to that. So I am a holder of the UN Ambassadorial Code of Honor, just to preach peace and to speak peace to everyone. Because as Mother Teresa said, peace begins with a smile. So allow me to share a presentation. I don't know whether you can see it on the screen.
Yes, it's visible.
Oh, it is visible. So you give me an interesting topic to deal with, which is community peace building. And I went ahead and I was trying to understand what is there. So as an educationist, you know, I'm an educationist, so I have to understand the county that we are talking about and what has been happening over the years. And I came across this interesting article that was written by Reverend John Oriedo sometimes back in the year 2018. So this was just a topical issue on talking about the cosmopolitan city of Kajiado and what used to be traditionally there, that it was an ancestral land for the Ma, and conflict is bound to erupt due to a number of factors. But the purpose of this study was to shift the peace initiatives from the adult being the people spearheading peace, but including youth on the same. And it was quite interesting. We may not be able to go through the article in detail, but there are a few highlights. And that highlights what is conflict. And one of the highlights from this article is that conflict is basically a virus which affects the facet of a community life and everybody, regardless of their gender, age, or status. People will conflict in one way or another, but how to resolve that conflict amicably is what is the most important. And one of the things I remember I was speaking somewhere another day, and it is what we were saying, at an example I gave. We are talking about people living harmoniously. Today, we teach our children the magical words in schools and in our Sunday schools. But when they get back home, they get parents who are yelling at each other. So it also becomes a big challenge that whatever they are taught out there is not practiced. I don't mean all families, I mean some, in some areas. So it is important that these, we cascade it. And I wish that this peace and conflict resolution was a topic during our studies, because when we went to school, our education system capitalized on the life cycle of a frog, it capitalized on the parts of a grasshopper, we capitalized on learning the parts of a fish, which was good to jog our minds. But I wish that this was some of the things that we were taught, how to live with one another and how to be able to resolve conflicts when they appear. Because each and every minute, each and every day, these are things that we go through on a daily basis. So conflict is a struggle. It can be a struggle of values. It can be either by a struggle of resources, and doesn't matter the magnitude. It is important that people are able to do preventive measures. And such activities like what you're doing, and I would love to congratulate the leaders of this CBO for thinking of mitigating, because today we don't have any conflict happening in Kajiado, but people are learning these skills. How do I resolve a challenge? How do I build peace between me and my neighbor, or between me and the person that I've met who is a stranger? So it is important to start doing it as a preemptive and a preventive tool. And as those were the recommendations of this article, that's exactly what you're doing this evening. And allow me to take this opportunity to congratulate you for this. So I know that our viewers may ask themselves, or anybody listening to us can ask themselves, what is this community peace that we are talking about? Because there is one quote that we all know, this lady who did great work for the globe, who was also a Nobel winner, that is Mother Teresa. She said that peace begins with a smile. And communities exist and coexist each and every day. And people have their own perceptions, but how you approach them will be different depending on how people view you when you meet them for the first time, because first impression is everything. So countries around the world, that does not exclude Kajiado County, but everywhere, people experience conflict, including where we work every day, including where we live every day. Conflict is everywhere, starting with our families, starting with our neighbors, starting with the constituents, and starting with the larger group, the citizens. So we need skills and expertise to combat any conflict that comes. And one vital aspect of life and living that is quite required is peace. Years ago, there never used to be peace studies. The UN came up with that, the studies of peace, because the goal is to have a world that is peaceful. And these studies have been going on. And over the decades, the civil and the proxy wars of Somalia and the thirst for peace and stability, these can be a good example for us to know the importance of understanding and the importance of peace building and reconciliation, and these interventions in advance. Because we have seen how our neighbors have been destabilized for years just because they cannot live harmoniously and they cannot be able to reconcile amongst themselves. And we cannot accuse them of faith, because a majority of them, they share the same faith. And we remember a few years ago, our viewers, they are those who are young. Some of us were adults who were able to vote in the year 2007. And we just tasted a little bit of skirmishes, because we cannot say that what happened in Kenya is what we have seen in other countries like Liberia and Afghanistan, Iraq, and the rest. But what happened in 2007, the effect and the trauma is still so fresh in us. That tells you that the lack of peace, what it can do to generations and what it can do to a decade. And there is no better way for us to be able to describe the importance of peace. So there are several conflicts that may happen in a society. Everything that I'm mentioning may not be on the PowerPoint. There are several types of conflicts that come up in a community. One may be data conflicts. Data conflicts, especially in terms of politics, saying that we have this number of people, or we have this number of hospitals, we have this number of schools that perhaps do not even exist. Then we may have even relationship conflicts, and this has been very prominent in our country in the recent past, where we have seen couples being killed with each other. The other day we had a Kenyan being killed in Australia by, the other day we have the husband killing a wife, a boyfriend or a girlfriend. There was a lady who was sentenced for murder, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday. So relationship conflicts are very eminent in today's world, because we have not embraced the idea of seeking help or external help. We have had the issues of people bottling up issues. And we also have interest conflicts. People conflict because of different interests. And this could be political interest, or it could be religious interest, or it could be views, different views. We also have value conflicts. Like now, we have a conflict, the LGBTQ issue. A good number of us who are Christians, we just know that God created Adam and Eve and didn't do James and John, and didn't do Eve and Joyce. So that's a value conflict, because there's somebody else who is feeling they're convicted that this is what is right for them. So the conflict in a community, they are different, and depending with the views and the values that people have. So it is important that we also understand what is conflict resolution, because for you to solve a problem, you have to understand what it is. And this is just the process of ending a dispute and reaching an agreement that will satisfy the both parties that are involved. And it is essential part of human being, and it is effective conflict resolution is basically not designed to avoid disagreements. Actually, disagreements are very healthy, because in my mother tongue, people say, I will directly translate, we say that talking is loving each other. That's a direct translation. It may be broken English. But for the interest of the cosmopolitan society of Kajiado, allow me not to use my mother tongue for that description. So when people talk, they are able to understand each other. And one way of solving conflict today, we have mediation, we have arbitration, and such are better than even going through the court process. So it is important that anybody who is listening to us to be able to know that peace is better than being right, and always be selective in your battles. You don't have to win any, which is one of the most difficult stages to get to. And that stage of mental toughness, and that stage of developing emotional muscles, that you know somebody is wrong, but you're just okay to let it go, just for the sake of peace and for the sake of everybody being peaceful. And that stage, I was once told by a professor friend of mine that is called the phallic stage. Because at phallic stage, you get to a stage of maturity and emotional maturity, whereby peace is better than being right, and peace is better than being argumentative. But that does not mean that you don't air your views. You can always air them in a calm manner, in a different way, and not with blows and punches. I know we grew up in a time whereby to resolve a conflict, we used to keep it until closing day. And on the closing day, we had a list of everybody who has been on the wrong. And we would deal with them categorically. Unfortunately, that is we may want to extend the same trend in adult life, which is wrong. So in adult life, we say that we can practice emotional intelligence, and we allow not our emotions to overtake us, and we allow to be on the losing end and allow somebody else to win for the purposes of peace. And it is always good to remind ourselves of the wisdom that exists of some of the quotes. And I've just mentioned that what we used to do during our school time, waiting for people during closing day. And there is a quote that's saying, an eye for an eye ends up making the whole world blind. Just because somebody has wronged you and you're at loggerheads with somebody, then that does not mean that you have to deal with them physically. So, but it doesn't still mean that where there is peace, there will be no conflict. Conflict will be there each and every day. All the difference and determining all the difference. And there are various reasons why we should not leave community peace initiatives just to politicians. And thanks to such a CBO that is trying to train the community on how to deal with peace and conflict, and training them on different topical issues. And also on health matters. I even heard during the introduction that you have a hike. I hope I'll be invited. I'll be glad to join you for the hike, because that is a good way of being able to get to know each other, and the community also being able to bond. So we may not be able to leave it to politicians, because there is Groucho Marx said that politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. So this is why if we leave it to politicians to make peace initiatives in their community, then they might apply the wrong remedies. So it is important that we be included. And I believe that was the purpose of public participation. It was the purpose of the private-public law. It was the purpose of involving the public in policy making, so that the politicians do not apply the wrong remedies, because they look for problems, they diagnose them, but they only think like politicians, because majority of them will think of the next election, but statesmen will think of the next generation. A majority of them may not think of the next generation. And why this CBO, I believe, is doing these initiatives is because it's looking forward into the next generation. What will happen? How will the community be like in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years, in the next 2 decades, in the next 3 decades? That is the vision, I believe, and that is what you are envisioning for wanting to raise a community that can live harmoniously and a community that is able to resolve its conflict. Elected leaders, they have their responsibility and a duty to preserve and to promote harmony in our communities, because conflicts will always arise, but it's upon leaders to be able to diffuse situations, to bring the community together instead of apart. That's basically what we say in sociology, social cohesion. And I believe our leaders will be able to do this. And even us, where we lead in the organizations that we are leading, we will be able to implement such. So allow me to wish every lady, including myself, our moderator, happy Women's Day. Today is our day. And as women, we are not left behind in our role of peace building processes, because we bear the responsibility for providing for our families' basic needs after the aftermath of any violence. When we look at the horrible images that go round after a conflict has happened, that includes the conflict in homes. It affects the women more. Divorces affect women more. Separation affects women and children more. So we may be underrepresented in negotiations, in political decision making, in policy making. However, allow me to mention this, that Kenya, we are doing well. We are actually, I think, leading in Africa. We have 45-point-something% inclusion of women. In comparison to other countries, we are closely followed by Nigeria. That was an article I was reading sometime earlier in the week. So we are doing well as a country, but are we doing well as a community? Are we doing well down there? Because we may have people in the ministerial positions, in parliament, but where real stuff happens, the bottom of the pyramid, we also need more of women, because many societies, and from what I know from, we may say it's a myth or it's the truth, I'll have the locals correct me, that the Ma community is patriarchal, it's a patriarchal culture. So we need to be able to recognize the role of women in making it possible to have peace building initiatives, because they are pillars of sustainable peace. This is economic recovery, reconciliation, social cohesion, political legitimacy, security, and governance. Allow me not to dwell so much in the political legitimacy, but let's talk about social cohesion. It's important that we have a cohesive society, and we can only be cohesive if we are living in peace with each other, if we are able to resolve our conflicts when they arise, because definitely they will. And that will be one of the key important areas. And there are 5 top conflict resolution strategies, how to resolve a conflict if it comes by your way. Never ignore any conflict. So the what we call in management, the ostrich algorithm, where you just hide your head, bury your head, and allow things just to flow or allow things just to sort themselves, that doesn't happen. Because eventually, when you bottle up in a conflict, one might explode, and you might explode even to the wrong person. Then clarify what the issue is. So we were not raised in a society where we were able to express our issues, especially those of us who grew up in the 80s. We were always told we are there to be seen and not to be heard. So we really need to paraphrase and to reverse our worldview so that we are able to express our issues and we are able to discuss issues as they come up. It's always important to bring involved parties together to talk, because as I said in my mother tongue, we said talking is loving each other. Then also important to identify a solution and continue to monitor and follow up on the conflict until it is resolved. That is the 5 strategies of resolving that. And when you're resolving conflict, it is important when you're having tough conversations, because when you talk of conflict, that would be a tough conversation. It is not a conversation that the person who is being accused really wants to hear, or the community, or even the persons involved want to hear. It is important to show empathy. Always put yourself in the position of the other person and try to view things from the perspective of the other person. Then always actively listen. Listening is a skill, and actually we should have been taught listening in communication for those who are able to do communication classes along their studies from diploma to undergraduate. Because one of the ways, one of the challenges that we have is people do not listen, or they do not actively listen. People listen to respond. So it is important when you're resolving a conflict, you actively reason from the perspective and from the expression of the person. That is listening both to the body language and listening both to the words and listening to the unsaid, because the unsaid is even more than what somebody will be able to express. Always remain calm. And it is not easy, because if you're the person who has been wronged, we understand, we do not want to underestimate that or invalidate any feelings, but it is always important to hold your emotions. And what I normally say when I'm speaking about emotional intelligence, and it's one way of resolving a conflict, holding your emotions, I tell somebody, you are so mad with an issue, count 10 to 1 backwards. By the time you get to 1, breathe out and now respond. Chances are you will respond in a more loving way and in a more calm way. And always communicate. That is one way of having tough conversations. Never assume, never ignore, but always communicate and never invalidate the feelings of the other person. Now that it is an evening, I know we all want to have our dinner. I will allow to give it back to the moderator. And I wish all of you a happy Women's Day. And there on the screen are my contacts. You can get my personal website, or you can just get me on Google through my name, and that is by social media handles. Thank you once again for having me this evening, and I hope to be back some other time.
Definitely, Dr. Ekrah Ndungu, we will really love to have you back. I've taken a lot of notes when you are talking. It's as if I was in a lecture hall. I'm learning a lot from you. And I believe that the listeners have also taken their own portion this evening. So at this moment, we are going to open the session to questions and also comments. I would wish to start with our chair. If you can hear me, Banandome, do you have any comment or any question for Dr. Ekrah? Ndungu.
I think his connection timed out, but he'll be back.
All right. Okay, fine. My takeaway maybe this evening, before I call on you, Benjamin, to get us maybe questions from the viewers and the listeners. My takeaway this evening, there are so many. There's a quote that you quoted from Mother Teresa, that peace or building or conflict resolution starts with a smile. And today we were being reminded where I was at a forum to mark the International Women's Day, that women may not have the strength to go and fight, but they can always fight with a smile. And you've repeated it now. So indeed, if we use our smiles well, appropriately, then we can calm the community or the situations in the community a relatively will reduce the tension than it was at the beginning of the conflict. Then you've mentioned something here that peace building should not be left to politicians only. However much they have a role to play, it should not be left to politicians only, because you have used one word, next. A politician thinks about next election. And other people, the rest of us, the rest of you like Dr. Ekrah, thinks about next generation. So that was a key point I've taken from here, that however much we have our leaders, then we also have to collaborate with them, work together with them, so that it's not all about next election, but it's also about thinking about the next generation. Very key. At this point, the question now I have for you, maybe you can help us unravel that. Most of the peace building committees that we have, being a member, the active member of the Kajiado County and the North, mostly Kajiado North community, is that they are usually established with the guidance, or let me use, for lack of a better word, a heavy hand of a politician. So what would you advise us to do going forward? Yes, you mentioned this, but as it is right now, those committees that I know, and some of us know, other than now this formation that we've had of the CBO, they are established in, somehow the politicians have a heavier hand in establishing them and who should be where. So what would you advise us, and maybe the national government under the leadership of our chiefs, our assistant chiefs, and DCC and ACC, how can we do that so that we can bring everybody on board?
Yeah, thanks for your question. Of course, politics is about serving interests. So I would give you advice as a lobbyist, because I serve as Secretary General for Kenya National Association of Private Colleges. How are we able to penetrate government and to be part of it? It is the duty, and it is by law through the private-public partnership law, that inclusivity is also part of our constitution. So being included is not even a beg, it's a right as a citizen. And I don't know why those peace initiatives do not have the chair of the Nyumba Kumi initiative, because that's another law. There must be. So you need to know who is the leader of the Nyumba Kumi initiative, because these are the people who we could call traditional leaders. Remember when we were growing up, there used to be that elder, the chiefs used to be very, very big men. Because I remember if our parents were told tutakupeleka kwa chief, that story ended there and and it will be resolved immediately. And even those who would butter wives, they are just told, I will report you to the chief. It was reason enough for somebody to beg indulgence and to beg for forgiveness. So I believe as a CBO, you have a lot of strength because you're holding a whole community. What I have learned through my 8 years of serving as SG is that political appointments or political win lasts only a small lifetime, because you deal with these CS within 2-3 years, they are no longer there. You deal with these politicians, the next election, they do not win elections. And there is always interest of posterity of any progresses, because for any progress to be recognized, there needs to be posterity. That means we need to include people who have longevity in whatever is being done. So as a CBO, you need to be included. You can write to the county, not as an attack to what is being done, but with reason. I've seen diplomacy work better than the push and pull. It is not all the time that government loves wrestling, because normally when you go to a government institution with wrestle, they first see you as an enemy. Nobody wants to be wrestled, including you if you're a CEO in an organization. You create a brick wall immediately once you do that. So you could write to the county, introduce yourselves as a CBO or whoever wants to be involved, whoever is listening and wants to be involved in the peace initiatives, and go with a solution. And remember, politics is about interest. So your solution needs to serve the interest of the person first. Then after that, we usually say, is it contributing to public order? Is it contributing to public health? Is it contributing to the goodwill of the citizens? So if your reasons are contributing to the three, then definitely any politician will listen to you and will sit down and will want to contribute, you contributing. So look for things they are doing and actively participate. Sometimes government is desperate, looking for people to help them. They don't have ideas, but they have positions. But there is nobody coming out to reach out to them. Sometimes you knock in an office and they tell you, where have you been, guys? We have been wondering whether there is no such an association existing. We've been wondering where there are no such citizens existing. Because when it comes to public participation, they need somebody who is also adding value with ideas. So basically, the doors are not closed. You have every reason to participate because constitutionally, you're right. Come to the law, you are supposed to be included, and come to the goodwill. And this is contributing to the goodwill of the citizens, and it's also contributing to public order. So there is no reason why somebody should lock the doors for you.
And
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. One more maybe. There are many terms that are used and many formations doing the same work. In your line, I don't know whether that's okay or they can be put under one umbrella. And the terms I'm talking about here are, we started with community policy that was launched by then the late President Kibaki. Then later, we borrowed from our neighbors, Tanzania, the Nyumba Kumi, from our neighbors down here. And then now there is another one that of peace building. So these are three formations. And I'm talking of them because I've been actively involved in the community work, and most of us may be listening. So there's Nyumba Kumi, there's community policing, there's peace building. So in your line of work, have you come across this, and what can you advise? We leave them to be like that. So you can find people meeting and say, as we are not Nyumba Kumi, we are community policing. As we are not for community policing, we are peace building. But at the end of the day, you realize what they are gearing towards is to ensure there's harmony in the community. What is your advice in that? And that will be my last question. Sorry, I would have more questions on this, but I'll do it outside chat you.
Okay, that is during the President Kibaki era, there was community policy, then there came Nyumba Kumi, and then we have peace building. I believe these are three different fires being lit to cook the same food, because the food that we are looking for is peace and living harmoniously in a community. My advice would be, why can't these three people work together? And this is how even institutions have come up with federations to speak out in one voice for the same. So if they worked together, instead of everybody lighting their own small fire, and this has been an Africa problem, that everybody wants to lead and do their own thing. This wants to lead and do their own thing. But all of them, when you listen to them, they are moving towards the same direction. So I think my advice would be that this could be merged together so that people can have a common goal. Not unless I've not been able to check the objectives of each, their objectives and their mission could be different. So if maybe the only one objective they are sharing that is the same. So it will be important that we get to see what was the mission of the community policy? What was the mission of the Nyumba Kumi initiative? What is the mission for the peace building that is there today? So what are the objectives of all these? So if all those objectives and their mission, they are the same, then they are just doing the same thing, but baptizing them different names. So they would rather just be merged into one, or they would rather work together. Because the idea is to have a peaceful nation, the idea is to have a peaceful community, and the idea is to have a safe environment for every citizen and everybody is happy.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I think you've responded well. And if there's any question, we will always come back to you and maybe call you another time to talk to us and the community. At this point, Benjamin, I want to hand over to you if there are any questions from the viewers.
There are no questions here. Watu wamenyamaza.
All right. Any comment from your side?
None at the moment.
All right. Okay. Regina, can you hear me? Okay, Chairman, if you can hear me and you have a comment, we want to close the decision now.
Give me a minute, let me just call him.
Yes, Benjamin, you are saying something?
No, he's still not back. His connection, I think.
Okay, no problem. No problem. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Dr. Ekrah Ndungu, for making your time. I know you're very busy, but you've accorded us the respect and you've gotten time to speak to us. Indeed, it's not in vain. We've taken something from you. I've taken my portion, and I believe other listeners have also taken their portion. And going forward, the members of the Kajiado we want, and also our guests who are listening to us, I believe they would want to have you one more time. So please, when we reach out to you, we hope you'll come back again. We'll really be looking forward to that. So at this point, viewers and listeners, we want to appreciate you this evening for listening, and we believe that you are going to make a better community out there We're going to try as much as possible to be good listeners. We want to try to use a softer language when it comes to conflict resolution, and also try not to ignore any red flags that we see in terms of conflict or something that is not right in the community. It's always good to act on those red flags that we see. So at this point, I want to thank you, and I believe that we will meet again next Wednesday as we go deeper into other issues that concerns us as a community. So may we say the grace as we close this session. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Shalom.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.